to Teague and Pearce with this question. And I believe that Representative Teague has the first shot at this one. How does your personal political philosophy differ in significant ways from the mainstream philosophy of your party?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what to refer to as the mainstream. You know, I'm a member of the political party that's called the Democratic Party, and as what Will Rogers had to say was that he didn't belong to an organized political party; he was a Democrat. We have a pretty big tent, and we have a lot of people in there. But I think the biggest philosophies to point out between me and the leadership of the party are things like the health care vote and the fact that I voted for my district and the people that live in my district. The Obama's budget that I thought was punitive to New Mexico and our education system. I voted against that, and I voted against the second part of the bailout that came in there to me. And I think that the best way to point out the differences between me and the leadership of the party is the fact that, as I said earlier, I was recognized as one of the most independent and centrist congressmen in D.C., and that was because I always represent the district and not the party. I come back to the district often. I'm here all the time. I've been here all the 4 weeks and weekends since I was sworn into office in January of last year. I've been to every community multiple times. I've talked with them, and I've spent time doing what the people in my district want and not attending party meetings to see what they want. And I think that's probably the best way to describe the difference between me and the leadership of the party.
I began my speeches in front of Republican groups by saying I'm conservative before I'm Republican, and I believe that summarizes it best. I stand for less spending, smaller government, and personal accountability. When I was in Congress, I got tremendous pressure from the Bush administration to support an amnesty policy that I simply did not think was productive for the country or for New Mexico. We also fought a huge fight on Veterans Affairs. There was a policy called concurrent receipts, which limited people who served in the military from drawing both retirement and disability concurrently. You could be the secretary in a department or just a janitor and be injured and receive your disability and retirement concurrently. But if you went to war, you couldn't. That originated in the Civil War, and President Bush said he would veto it, and Tom DeLay said he would not pass it. Tom DeLay passed it, and President Bush signed it because a small group of us made it a dedicated fight. When the economy began to stumble, we got tremendous pressure from our party to vote for bailouts of Wall Street. Nancy Pelosi's team passed it in the House. As Democrats and Republican President Bush signed it. I felt like it was a mistake because I believe in the free market. Free markets work when risk-taking has consequences. And what we did is let the government bail out very risky behavior. And so that risky behavior will be continued because people have not suffered from the consequences. I am probably one of the few people saying that we've got to have a pro-growth policy. That means create jobs. I understand that capital is the beginning point of capitalism. And when you tax that capital away, you take away the ability for companies to create jobs. But I don't hear that articulated much from our Washington Republicans. Instead, I hear more about spending cuts. I support the spending cuts, but pro-growth is where the future lies.
I would like to go back to Teague and Pearce on this next one. Ed County traditionally produces a large number of veterans, men and women. There's several questions here about Veterans Affairs. I guess I'd like to summarize this by asking what should we do, what can we do to support returning veterans, especially from Iraq and Afghanistan. There was another question in there on would you change your previous policies towards these veterans and veterans affairs? And I believe this first part goes to you.
Thank you very much. I am a veteran. I served in Vietnam, and we supported our veterans in tremendous ways when I was in Congress. We increased the funding by almost 60% to the VA, but funding is just a little bit of the problem. We began to host quarterly meetings with the head of the VA system, the head of the VA hospital in Albuquerque to come here and address the exact failures in service that we're seeing. We did those quarterly in rooms just like this with veterans who had been talking to me, and then began to ask questions, and we began to note that there were improvements in service. Because many times there's an arrogance in our bureaucracies that say that the bureaucrats are the outcome instead of the service. So it's not just enough to pitch funds at something, you also have to dig into it. I've mentioned the concurrent receipts problem. That was the first fix on that problem since the Civil War days. But we also put a bill in that said that if our young people are wounded in action and they still have the ability to serve, that they should have the option to stay in the military. In Vietnam, we came back and people who had lost limbs were just pitched out on the street and given a disability check. And what a way to live a life. That's no way to do it. And so we suggested that the DOD would want to include those people. They had proved their valor. They had proved their worth to the military. They had proved their patriotism. Let them serve. It takes 7 positions for every single one in combat. Logistics, training, computers. The DOD got that bill killed. It was a great disappointment. But one of the things that I notice now is that the DOD has implemented a policy letting people with amputations and disabilities serve, and that's one of the things I think came out of that legislation. Another thing we did is said, don't make veterans drive to Albuquerque. Let them go to Lobo doctors. Those would improve the service to our veterans.